Hey guys, today we are going to go through our second day of expressions and equations. I'm not going to lie, today is going to have some harder word problems, and you're just going to have to do your best in figuring out what type of word problem it is and figuring it out. Now, in order to be able to solve our word problem equations, we got to remind ourselves how to solve word equations. So we're going to go through our two different type of two-step equations. Remember, when you solve, you want to get x by itself. So you're going to undo everything and get x by itself. In this first one, we have x here. So we need to get rid of the plus 17 and the times 4. And I did that to circle x so we know what we're trying to get by itself. So first, because it's a plus 17, we're going to subtract 17 on both sides. And remember, you always line up what you're doing on both sides on opposite sides. You combine your constants or your just numbers with your constants, variables with variables. So negative 15 plus negative 17 is negative 32. My 4x stays the same. Now I just have the 4 next to x, so I need to divide by 4. So I get x is negative 8. Now over here, I could distribute the negative 5 and then solve like over here. Or it can be quicker to just first, I need to get this x by itself. So first I need to get rid of the parentheses and divide by negative 5 on both sides. 30 divided by negative 5, and this isn't a minus, this is division, right, is negative 6. So I have x plus 7 equals negative 6. Now, in order to get rid of the plus 7, I'm going to subtract 7, and I get x is negative 13. Now, that's the simple thing that you have to do is when there's just numbers. There's also going to be kind of complex word problems. So a store pays 2 fees when they use a credit card. These fees include a flat fee of 15 cents, so no matter what they're paying 15 cents, and a processing fee equal to 1.75 of the dollar amount of the purchase. There's no sales tax. So this means I'm automatically adding 15 cents, 0.15. This as a decimal is 0.0175. So in order to determine the fee, I'm going to have to multiply whatever my purchase price was, P, by this percent and then add 15 cents. That'll tell me my fee. What is the amount the store pays in fees for $60? So I'm going to take my equation I just made up here and plug in 60 for P. So 60 times 0.0175 plus 15. 15 cents, not $15, right? You're not going to pay a $15 fee for using a credit card. And when you have real world problems, guys, that's a reminder. Always make sure your answer makes sense. So I get 1.05 plus 0.15 or 0.15, which is 1.2 or $1.20. So I would answer $1.20. And that makes sense, correct? Like, would you pay $1.20 fee for a $60 purchase? Yes. If it was $12 or $20, the answer is probably no. Okay. A store gives a discount to people who use cash. The discount is equal to 4/5 of the 1.75% processing fee. So I need to find 4/5 of my 0.175. So I'm going to multiply, that's multiplication. I'm finding a fraction of the percent. I'm going to multiply. A customer will make a $150 purchase using cash. What's going to be the discount for using cash instead of a credit card on this purchase? So I'm going to find what this is, and then I'm going to also multiply that by $150 or the purchase price to figure out what that discount would be. So 4 divided by 5, I'm going to hit enter there so I make sure I have my order operations right because calculators can do that wrong. So 0.8 times 0.0175 times 150. So 2.1 or $2.10. And again, that's a reasonable number. You need to be careful when you're using a calculator, when there's decimals and stuff, make sure you put the right numbers in and make sure your answer is reasonable. Here's another really common type of problem where you're going to have a flat amount, a total, and a rate. Anita earns 60 points every time she shops. That means this is a rate, which means it's going to be with the letter when I make my equation. So I'm going to have 60p. She needs a total of 2,580 points. When I see total of, I know that's usually what my equation is going to be equal to. Receive a free prize. So far, she's earned 480 points. So far, she has 480. So I only need to count that once so it doesn't get a letter. How many more times will she have to shop in order to get the points she needs for a free prize? So I made my equation, right? And now I just need to solve it. Again, my 480 was something that happened once. That's why it doesn't have a letter. So I'm going to subtract, because it was a plus 480, I'm going to subtract 480 from both sides. Then I have 60p equals 2100. In order to get rid of my 60, I'm going to divide by 60. Again, this is division, not subtraction. Some of you guys have messed that up this year. 2100 divided by 60, and I get 35. And I can see it's an answer choice over here, so I know it has to be, well, probably on the right track. Okay, last one. And this is how they test the inequalities, is they usually will give you the inequality and then options and also ask you the answer. So you're not usually having to come up with the inequality yourself. So a factory is selling backpacks for $40 each. The cost to make one backpack is $10. So this is my rate, but I'm also going to have to think about this. In addition to the cost of making backpacks, the factory has operating expenses of $12,000 per week. The factory's goal is to make $980 each week. So you can see, I see lots of eaches and pers, so it seems like everything's a rate. But I have some equations down here, so that's going to help. Which inequality represents the number of backpacks that need to be sold to meet this goal? And then what is the actual number they need to sell? Okay. This is what they want to make, right? And I can see that's where my total is in these equations. I can see 30 in each of my equations, and that came from the 40 minus 10. And that's my rate. Because they're really only making $30 a backpack. These are expenses. Expenses are a cost, right? So I would need to subtract that from the money I make. So off the bat, I know these two are not right because expenses are subtracting from my profit. Now, the only two difference between these is the sign. Remember, this is my less than sign because it's a smushed L. And would I want my profit to be greater than or less than my amount I want to make? And I want it to be greater than. So that's why it's really important to remember your symbols and not memorize the direction, because this is my greater than, and this would make my profit greater than what I'm trying to make. Now I need to solve my equation. Even if I had trouble coming up with which one was correct over here, as long as you got that the expenses should be subtracted, you probably could get to the right answer. Now, just like I've been solving my inequalities or my equations, inequalities solve the same way. The only difference is you flip the symbol if you had to multiply or divide by a negative amount. So first I'm going to add 1200 to both sides, and I get 1180 is greater than 30x. Oops, and you know what happened? I accidentally forgot this zero. Something seemed a little off, so I double checked, and I did mess that up, which means, and I would have figured that out when I got to the end and I didn't get any of these numbers. But it is a good reminder when you rewrite something to double check it. So now my last step is dividing by 30. So I'm going to have 12980 divided by 30, and I get 432. Now, that means one of these two is correct. In a real world situation, you have to think of which way you would want to round it. Now, there's the rounding rules normally, but then you also have to think with a greater than, less than symbol, do I want this number to be bigger or smaller? So if I should round this number up mathematically, right? But if I were to round it down, I wouldn't have made enough money. So no matter if this was 4.323 repeating, I would need to round up so that I had enough profit for it to be greater. So now I have my two answers. Because x is greater than 432.6 repeating, which I want to round up to make sure I have enough money.